Alrighty, hi, my name is Cameron. This is my colleague Charlene. We are members of ECOG-ACRIN's Adverse Events team, and our principal job, such, is we review every CTEP AERS ticket that you guys send in for any ECOG-ACRIN study. And once we're finished with it, then we will send it on to the data management team for that particular study, and they'll do a second round of review as the study experts. So today, what I thought we would go over is what those tickets look like from our point of view, and how we review them, what we look for, and point out some of the minor bloopers that we like to bother you about. So that's just the top section of a ticket. It's just a big old PDF file that contains all the data that you're entering on the CTEP AERS website. So what we look for, the sections that we quality control, are the subject information. Typos happen. Do we actually have the right patient attached to this EA ticket? The course information is the adverse event listed in the right cycle, and are all the dates lining up. The study agents, the description of events, that's the storytelling part of the ticket. Does that match the actual list of AEs? Then we look at the list of AEs themselves. Are they reportable? Are the attributions correct? Yeah, the attribution, complete and consistent. First up, subject information. This is, I'm just going to whip through it. It's pretty straightforward. This top section is just, that's the section of the ticket, and I'm checking it against the banner at the top of the subject homepage in Rave. Most of the information that I need is going to be in there, and if I need extra demographic details that I want to look at, then that's in the enrollment forms over on the top left. So, but mostly it's just like the patient's initials, the gender, the birthday, and the institution, making sure all that stuff lines up. Course information, you would think this would also be super straightforward, but it has a few traps. So first up, the start date of the first course. That is the first course of the first step. And I'm checking that against cycle 1 of the treatment agent form, because day 1 of the cycle is always day 1 of treatment. Whether or not they had their clinical assessment a week ago, I'm always checking it against the treatment form. Second part of that section is the start date of the course associated with the expedited report. Also self-explanatory. Where we find the most errors is during follow-up. So your big tip is if the adverse event occurs during follow-up, then you're going to use the start date and the cycle number of the last course of treatment. So in other words, if the last cycle is cycle 9, then as far as your ticket, your AE reporting is concerned, cycle 9 goes on forever. The start date, where am I? The start date of the primary AE and the end date of the AE. So I'm just going to make sure that it actually took place during that cycle. I'm going to make sure all those dates line up. And for grade 5 events, the start date and the end date of the primary AE, that is going to be the date of death. So even if it's a grade 4 for 3 weeks, then your start date and your end date are the same. Course information, let's see, the course number on which the events occurred. So the query that I'm asking about most often here is that if you've got a multi-step trial, you've got step 1, then sometimes Rave will say step 1, cycle 1, 2, 3, and then step 2, cycle 1, 2, 3. So it's not always going to match what you're seeing in Rave. Sometimes you got to add them all up together, because on the ticket, you just keep counting. So it's going to be cycle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that is the cycle number that we want to see on your ticket. Finally, the study agents. All I want to tell you is that if the patient is on treatment, you're listing all the commercial agents in this cycle, and all the investigational agents for the whole study. And the reason we're so concerned about that is that that determines what shows up in the attribution section of the ticket. Yeah. Description of events. This is the narrative of the event. And there are several ways to organize this, but this CRA did a really nice job. It's broken down into the description, the diagnostics, procedure, grading, and attribution. So they've just got, the patient came in on this date, they had this complaint, here's how we diagnosed it, here's what we did about it, and then here are the physician's conclusions. So we'll check that kind of thing for the HIPAA violations. Sometimes you'll have a nurse who's just politely writing, Mr. So-and-so had a headache, and then stop that. Missing adverse events, so this might not show up on the list of events, but I see it in the description, then I'm going to query. So in this example, I've got pleural effusion, and I'm just going to query for that and see why it isn't down below. Sometimes this is just a matter of it being a distinct reportable event versus a side effect of another event that is listed. Then other discrepancies, the attribution that's different up there, or the grade is different. And some of these things are protocol specific, like some of them really want to know if the event is immune related. And the description of events is where you would say, this is an immune-related event. And then the adverse event section itself. So I'm going to hand off to Charlene.
Hello. So yeah, this is where we find the most inconsistencies between the ticket and rave. So what we look for at this point of when we're looking at the attributions, we go into rave, we make sure that the grade, the start and end dates, if they are reported in rave, also match, and the attribution, and the same exact adverse event. Sometimes there's a CT version 4, first version 5, which there's like a map that we can follow for that, but other than that, they should be exactly reported how they are on the ticket versus in rave. Yep, so we look for the term, the grade, the start date, which is all correct on this one, they all match, and the this is a big one too. So if the seriousness criteria doesn't match what is reported underneath the adverse event term, then we have to query. If it says required intervention on the ticket, but the box isn't checked in rave, that's a big issue as well. But then as you can see here, the attribution did not match. And sometimes this could be just a simple fix where rave was incorrect, so we just send a query and they update it. But if it is incorrect on the ticket, then a new amendment will have to be submitted. This outlines the seriousness criteria, which on a previous amendment, this site did not report hospitalization in rave, but they mentioned on the ticket, so we had to send a query, and then they submitted an amendment, and now they're correct. And then this is the example of a query that we send if the attribution is incorrect. Again, sometimes it's just simple fix in rave, and other times a new amendment is needed. And then if you have any questions, you can email the adverse event team at CTEP AERS at ECOG-ACRIN.org, or you can find a bunch of pamphlets and things like that on the NCI CTEP website.